Tonight, a tense and chaotic standoff continues in Camarillo, as federal immigration agents and hundreds of protesters face off well into the night after a day marked by clashes, tear gas, and mass arrests. It all began earlier today when federal agents carried out an immigration raid at Glass House Farms, the largest licensed marijuana cultivation site in Ventura County. The Department of Homeland Security said they were executing a warrant based on suspicions that a significant number of undocumented workers were employed there. From the outset, the operation sparked fierce opposition. Crowds of protesters quickly gathered around the site, chanting and blocking access roads. As the sun set, the scene escalated further, with law enforcement firing tear gas into the crowd. Protesters responded by climbing onto vehicles, throwing rocks, and confronting federal agents directly. SoCal's aerial footage showed a chaotic situation, protesters leaping onto the hoods of government cars, wheelchair-bound demonstrators squaring off with armed agents, and tear gas clouds forcing people to retreat. At least one agent's vehicle was damaged when rocks shattered its windshield and driver's side window. Authorities have not yet disclosed how many people were detained, but from aerial counts, dozens were seen being led away, loaded onto buses and vans bound for federal detention facilities. Protesters, however, have vowed to block the removal of detainees, arguing they are hardworking people just trying to support their families. One protester said tear gas was deployed even though demonstrators were peaceful. They started tear gassing us, and it was really bad. We weren't doing anything. Others expressed worry about what would happen to the families of those arrested. I worry especially for women married to these men, who don't work and now have to fend for themselves, another protester said. The path to citizenship is long and expensive. For many, it's simply inaccessible without someone to sponsor them. As night fell, tensions didn't ease. Federal agents brought in spotlights and additional vehicles to secure the area. Protesters, meanwhile, remained at barricades, chanting "ICE out of Camarillo" and blocking exits. The National Guard was present, standing by to prevent further violence, but avoiding direct confrontation whenever possible. In the latest developments, federal officials confirmed they are now investigating a shooting incident that occurred near the protest. According to the U.S. Attorney and the FBI, an unidentified individual, wearing a mask and seen in video footage, pointed a pistol at agents and fired shots during the chaos. Authorities released a still image of the suspect and have offered a reward for information leading to his arrest. Thankfully, no one was reported injured by gunfire. Meanwhile, Customs and Border Protection reported that among the detainees were 10 undocumented children, prompting the launch of a child labor investigation at the farm. At a nearby hospital in Oxnard, confusion broke out when injured protesters and detained workers were brought in at the same time. Some believed agents were there to make further arrests inside the hospital. However, Oxnard police clarified that the agents were only seeking medical clearance for those already in custody, and no new arrests were made at the hospital. Back at the farm, the standoff showed no signs of ending. Protesters blocked dirt roads and main entrances, forcing agents to reroute their vehicles. The National Guard, along with federal agents, attempted to find alternate ways to move detainees out without triggering more violence. Powerful strobe lights, used by protesters, lit up the night, creating further confusion. Desmond Shaw, reporting from SoCal, described the scene. They'd been sitting here for quite a while, plotting how to move these vans out without agitating more protesters. The National Guard has been careful not to escalate, but the protesters aren't leaving. Vehicles including Humvees, heavy equipment, and armored Bearcats were seen maneuvering around the site. Some vans carrying detainees tried to leave discreetly using back roads, but protesters anticipated the moves and blocked those routes as well. As of late tonight, a new blockade formed at one of the exits, with protesters standing in the path of federal vehicles. Strobe lights flashed, chants grew louder, and the National Guard appeared to be weighing whether to reverse course or push forward. SoCal's live feed showed the growing crowd and federal vehicles stuck at a standstill. Some military personnel, possibly a mix of National Guard and Marines, were seen observing but not engaging with protesters directly. "We haven't seen the military exchange words or engage physically with the civilians. They're trying to avoid escalation," said one reporter on the ground. As midnight approached, tensions at Glass House Farms remained high. Protesters, now numbering in the hundreds, stayed firmly in place, blocking every possible exit while chanting and waving banners. Federal vehicles, including white DHS vans carrying detained workers, were trapped between lines of demonstrators and the farm itself. National Guard troops and DHS agents stood by under the glare of powerful floodlights, attempting to coordinate their next move. Law enforcement officials from Ventura County and Oxnard were also present, providing support and trying to keep protesters from breaching the main compound. Inside the compound, detainees reportedly sat in buses and vans for hours, waiting to be transported. Outside, protesters used strobe lights and bullhorns to make their presence impossible to ignore. SoCal's aerial cameras captured the National Guard setting up barricades and deploying more vehicles to strategic points. Large military trucks, Humvees, and armored units were seen moving around, but no direct physical confrontations were observed. At one point, a few vans attempted to leave using an alternate dirt road, but protesters anticipated the move, rushing to block the path with their bodies. Drivers stopped rather than risk injury. Some of the protesters climbed on fences and vehicles, raising their fists and shouting, "Let them go," and "No more raids in our community." Federal authorities stated they were trying to de-escalate the situation to avoid further violence, especially after tear gas earlier in the day caused panic and injuries among both protesters and workers. Meanwhile, federal officials also confirmed that they were reviewing video evidence of a gunman who allegedly fired shots during the afternoon. A still image of the masked suspect was released to the media, and the FBI offered a reward for information. So far, no injuries from gunfire were reported. In another development, ICE confirmed that among those detained were several undocumented minors. This revelation sparked outrage among protesters, who demanded to know where the children were being taken. The Department of Labor has reportedly launched an investigation into possible child labor violations at the farm. Elsewhere, social media lit up with live streams from the scene, with hashtags like #Camarillo Standoff and #NoMoreRaids trending nationally. Several advocacy groups issued statements condemning the raid and calling for the immediate release of those detained. Ventura County officials issued a brief statement urging calm. "We are aware of the ongoing operation and the protests. We urge all parties to remain peaceful and respect public safety personnel while this matter is addressed." Late into the night, DHS agents and National Guard troops continued trying to find a solution that would allow them to remove detainees safely without further clashes. Spotlights illuminated the fields as agents discussed their options over radios. Around 2 a.m., a line of National Guard vehicles attempted another quiet exit down a little-used service road. But protesters, watching from the hillsides, quickly descended to block the path again. A SoCal reporter described the scene. "It's like a chess game, every time federal agents try a new route, protesters somehow get there first. The crowd isn't thinning out, and the vehicles remain trapped." Some protesters began to set up makeshift tents and brought in water and food, signaling that they were prepared to stay through the night if necessary. Federal officials told reporters that they would not confirm the exact number of detainees or their current condition until the operation concluded, but assured that medical personnel were on hand to monitor their well-being. At nearby hospitals in Oxnard and Camarillo, confusion persisted. Family members of detained workers gathered, fearing that loved ones being treated for tear gas exposure or minor injuries might also be deported directly from the hospital. Oxnard police again clarified that no arrests were being made inside hospital facilities, only medical clearances for those already detained. By dawn, the standoff had not yet resolved. Protesters maintained their barricades, while federal agents and the National Guard continued to negotiate internally and with local authorities about how to proceed. SoCal's final morning update summed it up. The sun is rising over Camarillo, and the situation remains tense but calm. Federal vehicles are still blocked in. Protesters have not left. It's clear this will not be resolved quickly. The Department of Homeland Security later said that the raid was the result of a months-long investigation into illegal hiring practices at the cannabis farm, which employs hundreds of workers. Legal representatives for Glass House Farms issued a statement saying the company complies with all labor laws and was shocked by the raid. Meanwhile, protesters vowed to remain at the site until all detainees were released or their whereabouts made clear. Community leaders began organizing supply lines to keep demonstrators fed and hydrated through the day. At press time, the standoff was ongoing, with both sides digging in and no immediate resolution in sight.